Hello, friends. This is Pastor Heather at Faith United Methodist Church, and I'm with Mark Eldridge, who is our tech lead here at the church. As many of you know, lots of churches have been on an incredible roller coaster of technology since the pandemic started. And so one of the things that we discovered is that we had sound issues here at Faith with the building, what we call the new building that was built in 2006. So I was chosen to interview Mark because he knows everything about the sound system, and I know nothing. So today, we're going to have a sound system for dummies conversation. So
we'll get there.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what started the deterioration of the sound system? I know we had some issues last year, and we kind of fixed it on the fly, but can you kind of give us the history of what's happened?
Yeah, we've been working through this for 4 or 5 years now, just because the system was built in 2005, and it's 15 years old, and over time you just expect deterioration and failure of certain parts. So we knew about 5 years ago we were coming up towards the life expectancy of the speakers and amplifiers in the current system. So we've been making changes over time. We bought the new soundboard, we got new subwoofers, some new amplifiers, a few things, all with plans of when the building was paid off to do the new speaker system, the real sound system development. Because what we had from 2005 has served our purposes very well.
Okay. And is that typical, 15 years, or is that a long time?
It can be more or less. I mean, that's a good time.
Okay.
But then also you look at technology as it's expanded over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, what we had was good technology for the time, but now in 2020, there's just so much more you can do to improve the sound and with everything we're going to talk about moving forward. And we did get to a point at the end of last year, right after the Christmas services. The next Sunday, I was walking around downstairs before service, listening to the sound, and I noticed the center speaker up top was not working right.
Oh, wow.
And I did some analysis on it, and our center speakers actually failed. So it failed right at the end of last year. So we had the temporary speakers, one over the organ and one over the piano for a while when we had live in-person services to try and Band-Aid that until we could get it repaired. And then COVID hit.
Yeah. And we used to have, I think, speakers or monitors that were on the stairs here.
Yeah, we had the whole premise of the system we had was the 3 main speakers up top that basically pointed down to different parts of the sanctuary and covered it in thirds. And it just broadcast sound into the space, which is fine for a live performance because, sound, it hits and it's bouncing around, but, we can hear what we need to hear. And that, for the technology, those were good speakers.
Okay.
But now, with COVID, a big part of what we have to do is control the sound in here so we can have a good online streaming presence. And, as you know, the first couple of weeks that we were broadcasting online
it was bad.
Were kind of tough.
Yeah.
Because we were thrown into that snake pit, and we were like, wow, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And we really didn't know. And the sound, and I know Greg Leslie will laugh at this because it was really not good the first couple weeks. But we didn't know.
Right. And we had, you may not know, that we had made a decision to go to a live stream by the end of 2020. So we'd already voted, and the council and the leadership in the church had decided that we needed to do that anyway.
Right.
We did it 9 months early.
Yeah. And because we were just there.
Yeah.
And, so what we learned real quick, just so everybody knows, the speakers we have broadcast sound so everybody can hear, but online you have to have very tightly controlled sound from each microphone. Oh. And the problem we had with the main speakers on and all the other speakers on and all the reflective surfaces in here, sound bounces all over and it gets back into the microphones and it muddies up what you're hearing. And we learned over the next couple of weeks that we basically have the main speakers turned off. We removed the monitors that were up here because they're broadcasting loud sound up front. So now all the musicians are on in-ear monitors, so there's no sound bouncing up here. And I'll explain the main speaker system we're going to have and acoustical treatments in a minute. But basically, we have to keep all the reflected sound out of the microphones.
Well, and when the space is full of the 240 people that are typically in here, doesn't that absorb some of those?
It does.
Okay.
And that's important too. And right now, it's actually been worse because We just have the pews, which are very reflective in and of themselves.
All that wood.
And, so once we get people back in here, that will help. But even so, these speakers were bouncing sound off of just above on the balcony face and the side walls and the back walls underneath. Those are all hard surfaces. You know, this is a really good acoustical space. I mean, it's a very well-designed room.
Oh, good.
They did very well in creating the space. But we need to control it a little bit more than what it is right now. So that's
well,
where
you
we're at.
told me that new technology that we're getting didn't exist when we built the building.
Exactly.
And so can you tell me the difference between what we had and what this new technology will do for us?
Yeah, it's really neat. Actually, when they were building this, Rinkus Hines, the company we're getting the speakers from, was developing this new technology.
Oh.
And they had just started with that, but nobody could afford it back then.
Of course not. Yeah.
But what it is, instead of just 3 speakers up top, you know, in the heavens pointing down at you, what we're going to have is 2 speakers. And one will be just above the piano and one just above the organ.
Okay.
And they're 12 feet tall. They're 8 inches wide and 7 inches deep. So it's a long column. And it has 17 6.5-inch speakers in it, and then 6 high-frequency drivers. That's called a column array, and I'll explain that. Each speaker has its own amplification and its own signal processing. And we're going to have somebody from Rinkus Hines come in here to tune the system for us, because they have to adjust each speaker relative to all the others.
Wow.
And what that does, just in real simple terms...
That's what I need.
It controls where the sound goes.
Oh.
And it will aim the sound from the front row to the back row of the seats, and it will not hit the face of the balcony, and very little will hit the back walls. It will be controlled to go to the people and not just out into the room, which is really critical, because that way we're not bouncing sound everywhere. People hear what they need to hear, but it's not going all over the place.
So will they be big black speakers on the wall?
No, they'll be painted the same color as the wall.
Oh, so they'll disappear.
Just about.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So there'll be a long skinny piece along the wall up there. So, you know, it is what it is there. And then we're going to have acoustical treatments on the back walls and the balcony face that will absorb any sound that does get to them and keep that from reflecting back. So what people are going to experience...
Oh, that was my next question.
Well, there you go.
What if I'm at worship, what will I experience?
Yeah. You will be able to sit in any seat in the sanctuary and hear the same thing as anybody else in the sanctuary.
Oh.
We've never had that.
So we've had these little speakers that hang so that everyone behind or underneath the balcony gets their own kind of sound,
They
right?
get their, and what it is, because the speakers up top are pointed down, nobody under the balcony can even hear those.
Right.
Or so we've had 2 completely separate systems, one for the people out here in the big part of the sanctuary, and then one for people under the balcony.
So will we not need those anymore?
They will go away.
Wow, that's wonderful, because there's a lot of them.
There's 10 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll become much more simple as far as the system goes. It's very complex in the execution building it, but once it's installed, it's really a simple system.
So if I'm at home watching live stream, what does the new system sound like to me?
At home, it won't sound any different.
Okay.
What you're getting now is what you're going to get at that point.
Okay.
The problem we've had is we've had a choice to either do in-person live worship or online sound. We couldn't do both at the same time because we couldn't control the sound in the sanctuary. And that's been the big problem. That's one reason we could never go online, because we couldn't control the sound. It's just muddied up. So we'll have control over that now, and everyone at home will get the quality they're experiencing today.
Which is the best we could come up with in this situation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I thought of another question. We haven't been able to have a full band like we used to in our contemporary service.
Right.
And part of that has been the sound issues and
Exactly.
all of that. So when we go back to in-person worship, and will we be able to have the full band?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
the
awesome.
whole point. And that's why we contacted Kurt Typale to come in and help us engineer the system. And I knew, and Greg, Leslie, and Kurt, and everybody we've worked together, we knew where we needed to go, but we didn't know how to get there.
Right.
And so we had to hire somebody that has the expertise to come in and do that. And that's where we're at.
That's great. And from what I understand, that we had some private donations, and we had money through the trustees' budget to be able to do this. So we're
Right.
not having to take away from operating
We're
or
not
beg,
having-
borrow, and steal kind of thing.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we're not having to raise any additional funds to do this.
That's wonderful.
It's been an absolute blessing.
Yeah.
It really has.
You know, I always say, I don't know why I'm surprised when God makes things happen, but it happens over and over again. And so,
Well, and COVID is not a blessing in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But having this time to take the time to really engineer this and do it the right way and not be under pressure to get it done in a week because we're going to be back in the sanctuary the next week.
right.
It's been really nice to be able to engineer this thing and take the time to get it right.
Well, and I think that one of the things the pandemic has done for the church universally is it's forced us to get out of our buildings and to be more relevant in people's homes and more accessible in a way that I don't know we would have done if we hadn't been forced to do it. So,
I agree. It's made everybody appreciate what we had
yeah.
and where we're going to be.
Well, thank you so much for coming. And I think everybody will be able to understand. I think
so.
I understand. And so
Anybody has any questions, shoot me an email. I'll try to explain.
that's meldridge@faithtulsa.org if you have a question for Mark. And thank you for spending the time to listen to what we have coming. I hope that you will notice the difference and pay attention to just how much better it is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting people back here and hearing them sing.